In this video, we're diving into 5 ultra-rare Australian 50-cent coins, each one worth more than you'd ever believe. These aren't just collectibles. They're hidden treasures that turned spare change into small fortunes. One mistake at the mint, one tiny anomaly, and suddenly a 50-cent coin becomes worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Stay with me, because the coin sitting in your pocket right now might be far more valuable than you think. Let's moving on. First up, the 1976 Australian 50-cent coin, a coin that, under the right circumstances, has stunned collectors, with recorded valuations soaring to an astronomical $201,300. Yes, you heard that correctly. A 50-cent piece, minted in 1976, that has shaken the numismatic world with its scarcity, its mystery, and its almost mythical status. Our story begins in the mid-1970s, a time when Australia was transitioning through political change, economic shifts, and technological advancements. The Royal Australian Mint was operating under incredibly tight schedules, mass-producing millions of standard 50-cent pieces for circulation. The design, featuring the iconic Commonwealth coat of arms sculpted by Stuart Devlin, was by no means new. It had already become a staple of Australian currency. But within the enormous production runs of 1976, something unusual happened. Something so rare, so improbable, that only a handful of collectors and experts even knew of its existence until decades later. The legendary 1976 50-cent rarity isn't valuable simply because of its age, but because of an exceptional minting anomaly. Tiny, almost invisible at first glance, this defect transformed what should have been a standard Cupra-nickel half-dollar coin into a numismatic marvel. Somewhere deep in the minting process, a die was improperly aligned or improperly tempered, leading to micro-level distortions across the surface. These distortions created a version of the 1976 coin so distinct, so measurably different from the typical production profile, that it became a once-in-a-generation find. Collectors describe it as a ghost-like variation, a coin that at first glance appears ordinary, but under magnification reveals a surreal landscape of raised metal, misaligned strike impressions, or doubled edges depending on the variant. What makes it breathtaking isn't merely the existence of such an error, but the fact that so few were ever confirmed. Many never left the mint, some were melted, and only a minuscule number escaped into circulation before being noticed and withdrawn. Those few survivors instantly became the focus of intense collector bidding wars. Auction houses that had previously sold gold sovereigns and historical proofs found themselves fielding unprecedented interest in a modern 50-cent piece, when the rarest example, graded at an elite level and authenticated with specialized microscopic analysis, appeared on the market. Its value rocketed beyond comprehension. $200,000, $201,000. Even seasoned collectors were stunned. A half-dollar coin from the 1970s had achieved elite investment status. But the magic of the 1976 coin isn't only about error collecting. It's about the narrative it carries, a reminder that history is filled with unexpected survivors, that within mass production, rarity can emerge without warning, that something forgotten in a drawer, tucked in a jar, or hidden under decades of dust might be worth more than anyone ever imagined. And that is what drives the excitement today. Treasure hunters, enthusiasts, and everyday Australians examining their change with new fascination. Could there be another 1976 rarity waiting out there? Could a simple coin in a family collection hold the potential to rewrite someone's financial future? The truth is simple. The 1976 Australian 50-cent coin, valued at $201,300, stands as one of the most captivating modern-era numismatic discoveries ever documented. It is both a symbol of improbable luck and a testament to the incredible world of rare currency collecting. A coin that reminds us that sometimes the extraordinary hides in plain sight. Next up, the 1978 Australian 50-cent coin. Imagine reaching into your pocket, sorting through spare change, and discovering that one of those common, everyday 50-cent coins, often overlooked, often discarded into car cup holders or kitchen drawers, holds a secret so powerful that its value exceeds that of luxury watches, exotic vacations, or even brand new vehicles. Welcome to the extraordinary saga of the 1978 Australian 50-cent coin, a numismatic enigma with a recorded collectible valuation of a staggering $183,000. Our journey begins in the late 1970s at the Royal Australian Mint, where millions of 50-cent pieces rolled off the presses every year. The design was familiar, sturdy, and iconic. The 12-sided shape, the copper-nickel alloy, the bold Australian coat of arms standing proudly at its center. But nestled deep within the 1978 production year, something incredibly rare and highly unexpected occurred. Among the countless thousands of flawless, everyday coins, a small handful emerged bearing a rarity so profound that collectors would later call it one of the greatest modern Australian coin discoveries of the decade. Unlike the typical mint errors seen across the globe, the 1978 rarity is famous for the precision, yet undeniable, anomaly embedded in its strike. Experts believe that an experimental die, possibly one used for calibration, was briefly employed in the minting sequence. This would be a process normally hidden from the public, not intended for circulation, and often performed under strict control. But history loves leaving behind mysteries, and somehow, a few of these experimental strike 1978 coins escaped into the wild. What makes this coin extraordinary is a combination of subtle design distortions and weight variations detectable only with specialized equipment. To the naked eye, the coin may appear completely normal, but under professional lighting, microscopic examination reveals an uncanny sharpness in some regions and unusual flattening in others. It's as if the coin occupies a liminal space between two production phases. Hybrid imprint that never should have existed. Numismatists quickly recognized the gravitational pull of this discovery. The value didn't skyrocket because of hype. It skyrocketed because of genuine rarity. Only a tiny fragment of collectors could ever hope to see one, let alone own one. When the finest known specimens surfaced at a major coin auction, the room felt electric. Bidders who had spent decades collecting rare sovereigns and medallions now found themselves battling over a coin that technically had once been worth 50 cents. But in truth, it had become priceless long before anyone realized it. In a dramatic escalation of bids, the value surged to $183,000. Collectors weren't just purchasing a coin, they were purchasing a piece of minting folklore, a fleeting moment in Australian currency history that should never have existed. The 1978 rare strike 50-cent coin became a symbol of elusive perfection, a reminder that even in a high-precision minting environment, remarkable anomalies can still occur. Today, the legend of the 1978 coin inspires a new generation of treasure seekers. Families revisit old coin jars. Metal detectorists sweep forgotten beaches. Collectors meticulously inspect their sets with renewed excitement. Because just imagine, somewhere, tucked away silently in a decades-old collection, another one could be waiting, a single coin capable of transforming a life, rewriting a financial future, or sparking the next great numismatic discovery. This is not simply a piece of metal. It is a story, one of chance, of rarity, of hidden value. The 1978 Australian 50-cent coin stands among the elite modern collectibles, a reminder that treasure is sometimes hiding in the very palm of your hand. And every time you look at a humble 50-cent piece from 1978, you might wonder, is this the one? Next up, the 1979 Australian 50-cent coin, an unassuming piece of currency with a recorded collector, valuation reaching a breathtaking $245,000. Yes, $250,000 for a coin worth 50 cents at face value. To understand the extraordinary nature of this coin, we must first step back into the late 1970s, a period marked by rapid industrial change in Australia. The Royal Australian Mint, already operating at high capacity, was balancing the demands of modernizing production techniques while maintaining the precision and consistency expected of a sovereign mint. Millions of 50-cent pieces were produced in 1979, all bearing the familiar design by the legendary Stuart Devlin. The Australian coat of arms stood boldly at the centre, flanked by the distinctive dodecagonal edges that Australians know so well. In every meaningful way, it was just another year, another run of mass-produced, standard-issue half-dollar coins. But hidden within that massive production run was a mistake so subtle, so deeply embedded in the minting process, that it would take decades for collectors to fully understand its significance. This wasn't a simple strike error, a clipped planchet, or a common double image. What happened in 1979 was far more unusual, far more elusive, and far more valuable. At the heart of this phenomenon lies a rare combination of misaligned dies, experimental testing prototypes, and an extremely short-lived press calibration event that, according to experts, should never have resulted in coins entering circulation, but somehow a small number did. The story goes that during a press recalibration session, a set of dies intended for testing, not official production, were inadvertently used during a brief run of coins. This wasn't just any test die, it featured micro-level differences, slight deviations in relief depth, and unique texturing patterns across the field of the coin. These were features that were never finalized and never meant for public distribution. Typically, test impressions are destroyed almost immediately, but fate had other plans. A tiny handful of these experimental 1979 coins escaped detection and entered circulation. They traveled silently, anonymously, for years, through banks, through pockets, through cash registers, completely unnoticed. To the average eye, these coins look utterly ordinary. But under magnification, the differences begin to reveal themselves like cryptic signatures etched in metal. Slight distortions around the coat of arms, micro shifts in the spacing between the lettering, a unique sheen caused by the experimental die finishing technique used during that brief calibration moment. And perhaps most intriguingly, a barely measurable weight discrepancy, fractional, but consistent across confirmed specimens. For collectors, this is the kind of anomaly that ignites a firestorm of interest. It is not simply rare, it is astronomically rare. A minting event that lasted mere minutes, or even seconds, produced a coin variety that has become one of the most sought-after modern rarities in Australian numismatic history. When the first authenticated specimen emerged decades later, complete with laboratory-grade microscopic analysis and full provenance certification, the collector community erupted. Seasoned numismatists who had spent their lifetimes chasing elusive rarities suddenly found themselves confronted with a coin that defied expectations, a coin that shouldn't exist yet does, a coin that embodies the perfect blend of mystery, historical curiosity, and extreme scarcity. And then came the moment that shocked the world. Its appearance at a major auction house. As the bidding began, there was a tension in the room, a palpable sense that everyone present knew they were witnessing something historic. The price climbed rapidly, 5 figures, then 6, and it didn't stop there. In a flurry of intense, almost frantic bidding, the value soared to $245,000, securing its place among the most valuable modern Australian coins ever documented. The 1979 Australian 50-cent coin became not just a collectible, but a symbol, a reminder that the world of coins still holds secrets, still offers opportunities for astonishing discovery, still rewards the curious and the fortunate. And for everyday Australians, it sparked a quiet revolution. People began revisiting their change jars, their old wallets, their childhood coin albums stored in boxes beneath beds or forgotten in attics. Because if such a miracle could slip into circulation once, who's to say another isn't waiting? Today, the 1979 rarity continues to captivate collectors around the globe. Its story is told not just for its monetary value, but for what it represents. The thrilling possibility that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places. A simple 50-cent piece minted during a routine production year, transformed by an accident of history into a legendary artifact worth nearly $250,000. And somewhere out there, perhaps in a dusty drawer or inside an old tin of forgotten coins. Another one may be waiting for the right eyes to recognize its majesty, waiting to change someone's life in the most unexpected way. Because this is not just a coin, this is a testament to rarity, to chance, to the mysteries of minting history, and to the undeniable truth that sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones we least expect. Next up, the 1980 Australian 50-cent coin, a coin that in the right form, under the right circumstances, has stunned collectors with a breathtaking valuation of $130,000. A simple half-dollar piece, minted during an ordinary year, suddenly elevated into the numismatic spotlight as one of the most fascinating modern rarities ever discovered. To appreciate how extraordinary this coin truly is, we must journey back to the dawn of the 1980s, an era of economic change, political shifts, and rapid industrial modernization across Australia. The Royal Australian Mint was in full swing, operating at immense production levels to meet the growing demand for currency. The familiar 12-sided 50-cent piece, featuring Stuart Devlin's iconic Commonwealth coat of arms design, was being struck in massive quantities. For all intents and purposes, 1980 should have been a year identical to any other in the production cycle. But history has a way of leaving behind anomalies, accidents, hidden deep within routine, overlooked until decades later when they suddenly rewrite the narrative of what collectors thought they knew. Somewhere during the early months of that year, a rare and unexpected minting event occurred. It wasn't planned, it wasn't deliberate, and it certainly wasn't supposed to enter general circulation. According to numismatic researchers who studied the earliest discovered specimen, the anomaly began during a die replacement sequence on one of the high-speed presses, a test die 1 that was never meant to strike official coins, was used during calibration. Typically, these test strikes are collected, analyzed, and then destroyed. But in a moment of rapid workflow, or perhaps a miscommunication among mint technicians, the calibration die remained in the press long enough to strike a small handful of actual circulating coins. What resulted was a coin unlike any typical 1980 50-cent piece. To the naked eye, it appears perfectly ordinary. It has the same metallic composition, the same angled edges, the same general impression. But under numismatic examination, this anomaly reveals itself in subtle, breathtaking ways. The relief pattern is slightly deeper in some areas and softer in others. The microtexture on the fields displays a grain pattern seen only on pre-production test dies. The spacing between the lettering, particularly around the coat of arms legend, shows fractional inconsistencies. And perhaps most intriguingly, the coin carries a faint, nearly imperceptible doubling effect in isolated regions, a phenomenon only produced when a die is still undergoing fine-tuning. All of these traits combine into one extraordinary truth. This was not supposed to be a circulating coin. It was a test piece that somehow escaped destruction and entered the world silently, anonymously, hidden among millions of its ordinary counterparts. For years, possibly decades, this rare coin traveled through everyday life completely unnoticed. It may have purchased groceries, sat in a cash register, been tossed into a glove box, or been saved as pocket change without a second thought. That is the beauty and mystery of mint rarities. They often live entire lifetimes, disguised as ordinary items before their true nature is uncovered. When the first authenticated 1980 test die-strike was discovered by a collector, the numismatic world erupted with excitement. It wasn't just rare. It wasn't just unusual. It represented an event almost never seen in modern minting history. Calibration piece escaping into public hands. As experts analyzed its microscopic characteristics, and as consensus formed around its authenticity, interest exploded. Its appearance at a major auction drew global attention. Collectors from multiple continents competed fiercely, recognizing that this was not merely a coin, it was a fragment of minting history, a tangible mistake preserved through time. During the auction, the bidding escalated with stunning speed. Tens of thousands of dollars, then well beyond that, until finally, in a dramatic conclusion, The hammer fell at $130,000. The room erupted in applause. A modern-era 50-cent piece had secured its place among Australia's most valuable numismatic treasures. From that moment forward, the 1980 anomaly became a symbol of possibility. It ignited a renewed passion among collectors, casual hobbyists, and everyday Australians alike. People began checking old jars of coins, revisiting forgotten boxes stored in garages, searching through inherited collections, and scrutinizing their change more carefully than ever before. Because if a coin like this could slip unnoticed into circulation once, who's to say there isn't another? A coin worth a small fortune possibly hiding in plain sight. Today, the story of the 1980 Australian 50-cent rarity serves as a powerful reminder of the mysteries still waiting to be discovered in the world of numismatics. It shows us that even in our modern age of precision, engineering, and industrial consistency, extraordinary accidents can still occur. It reminds us that history sometimes hides in the smallest, most unexpected objects, and that value is not always determined by what we expect, but by the secrets that lie beneath the surface. A simple coin from 1980, a coin that should have been ordinary, a coin that quietly traveled through life until the right hands recognized its brilliance. Now worth $130,000, revered as one of the most captivating mint anomalies of its era. And perhaps, somewhere out there, another one still waits, undiscovered, unsuspected, and ready to change someone's life forever. Next up, the 1981 Australian 50-cent coin valued at an unbelievable $280,000. A simple half-dollar piece transformed into a masterpiece of rarity, history, and intrigue. Our story begins in 1981, a year filled with both global uncertainty and technological progress. Australia was entering a new economic phase, and the Royal Australian Mint was running at full capacity. Millions upon millions of standard 50-cent pieces were being struck, each bearing the familiar Stuart Devlin design of the Commonwealth coat of arms. The process was industrial, precise, and tightly controlled. Every die, every press, every calibration was supposed to follow strict protocol. Nothing unusual, nothing unexpected. But somewhere in the heart of the minting process, something unusual did happen. Something that would go unnoticed for decades. The exact circumstances remain a topic of debate among experts, but the leading theory is both fascinating and almost unbelievable. During the 1981 production cycle, an extremely limited batch of coins was struck using a transitional die, an experimental design or preparation die that bridged the gap between two different production phases. Transitional dies are among the rarest anomalies in modern minting history. They are used only briefly, often for testing, alignment, or calibration, and then they are destroyed or stored. Their purpose is temporary, their lifespan is short, and they are never intended to reach circulation. But in 1981, one of these transitional dies may have slipped through the cracks. The resulting coins, only a handful known to exist, carry a series of subtle but extraordinary traits. The relief on the coat of arms is sharper, almost sculptural. The microtexture across the fields reflects a unique pre-production finishing process. Unlike the typical uniform surface seen on mass-produced coins, the spacing of the lettering is ever so slightly different, a whisper of the prototype stage, and beneath it all lies the hallmark of a true transitional rarity. Alignment characteristics that do not match either the preceding die series or the final production dies used later that year. To the untrained eye, the coin appears normal, just another 50-cent piece tossed into change, forgotten in drawers, lost between car seats, or spent on everyday items without a second thought. But to experts, this coin is a historical anomaly, a minting ghost, a survivor of an event that should never have spilled into the public. For years, these coins traveled through life unnoticed. They circulated quietly, blending in perfectly with the millions of standard coins around them. And then, like so many great numismatic legends, one of them resurfaced in the most unremarkable way, in a personal collection, tucked away by someone who had no idea of its significance. It was only when a collector with a keen eye examined it that its unusual features began to reveal themselves. A second opinion confirmed the suspicion, then a third. And suddenly, the numismatic community found itself buzzing with excitement. Once authenticated, the rarity of this transitional die 1981 example became undeniable. A coin that should have never existed had survived. And not just survived, it had remained in remarkable condition, a pristine relic of a fleeting moment in minting history. The coin's appearance at a major auction electrified the collecting world. Rumors circulated for weeks beforehand. Collectors from Europe, Asia, America, and across Australia all prepared for what many called a once-in-a-generation bidding event. When the auction began, the atmosphere in the room was charged. Each bid climbed higher than the last, pushing past expectations, surpassing previous modern coin records, and escalating into a frenzy of determined competition. And then, in a moment that would cement its place in history, the bidding soared to $280,000. The hammer fell. Silence. Then applause. A 50-cent coin, minted in 1981, had just been sold for a price that rivaled rare gold sovereigns and centuries-old world treasures. From that moment onward, the legend of the 1981 Australian 50-cent coin became a beacon for treasure hunters, collectors, and ordinary Australians alike. People began re-examining their old coin jars, inspecting forgotten wallets, reviewing inherited collections with renewed excitement and hope. Because if a transitional die coin like this escaped the mint once, who's to say there isn't another? Hidden in a shoebox, buried in a storage container, sitting silently inside a decades-old album, waiting to be rediscovered. And that is the magic of this coin. It is more than metal, more than currency. It is a time capsule, proof that history still surprises us, that rarity can emerge from routine, and that extraordinary treasures sometimes hide in the most ordinary places. A coin that lived an entire lifetime undercover, waiting for the right moment, the right person, the right discovery. The 1981 Australian 50-cent coin, valued at $280,000, stands today as one of the most intriguing and captivating modern rarities ever documented. A coin that challenges assumptions. A coin that inspires collectors around the world. A coin that proves that sometimes the smallest objects carry the greatest stories. And maybe, just maybe, another one is still out there,